Welcome back to another weekly episode of Endurance Insights with myself, Coach Mark Cullen, coach to a number of competitive, elite, and professional CrossFitters, triathletes, and runners. I love this performance journey. I'm always diving deep into what is happening, all the hot topics, and trying to debunk some of the myths out there as well. So, one I'm very passionate about coming up is everybody is so obsessed with their FTP or their bike threshold these days that I think they are missing out on six other things that are just as important as your FTP for bike performance. Remember, our goal in all of this is not who pushes the most watts, it's who gets to from the start to the finish in the fastest amount of time. So for cyclists and time trialists, it's leaving it all out there and perfectly emptying that tank. For a triathlete, it's who can ride the fastest and most efficiently and back it up with the run. So remember, it's in triathlon, it's ride for show, run for dough. And if you have an amazing bike split but run like crap, then I don't give you credit for having an amazing bike split unless something really went awry on the run or something like that. But yeah, either way, you got to earn. It's a triathlon and it's fastest getting to the finish line. So let's dive into six things I think athletes need to be thinking about just as much as what their FTP is. We need to build that engine, but there's so many other aspects that allow us to fully express that engine. So first one is going to be aerodynamics. So we know our drag coefficient, known as our CDA, is super important. And there's a reason professional athletes go to the wind tunnel so they can test all of their gear and their position and get the lowest possible CDA while being able to still push good power. And there's always a trade off between the two. If you totally tuck yourself in there and bury yourself, you're probably going to be pushing lower power, but that might be a trade off that's worth it. So within aerodynamics, first one is bike position. So your aero position on the bike is like your biggest multiplier. We are the biggest sales of wind resistance on the bike. And if you can be low, sleek, and in a sustainable position that reduces your frontal drag and your frontal area, is going to be more than any sort of equipment upgrade. So when people come to me and they've bought a new bike and they're like, should I get a professional bike fit? It's like, yes, please go get a bike fit because talking to an expert and telling them what your goals are in terms of, do you want to trade off aerodynamics, or are you looking for a sustainable position? If you're doing an Ironman, maybe you're going to go a little less aggressive so that your hip angle's a bit more open and you don't torch your legs because you have to run a marathon off of it. So they'll know how to balance the aerodynamics and comfort so you can hold that position efficiently. And you can have the coolest, most aggressive position, but if you can only hold it in an Ironman bike leg or a 70.3 bike leg for 30-40% of it, then it's not as good than if you were maybe a little bit less aero, but you could hold it for 80, 90, 100% of the time, especially on a flat course. So remember, we want to pretty much be in that aero position if we're anything below like 22 kilometers an hour or roughly like 13, 14 miles an hour. You want to be in that aerodynamic position because you're getting the benefit of aero during that. So the more you could be in there and be comfortable, please just friggin' get a bike fit. It will be the best investment you can make, better than buying new wheels or buying a new bike and stuff like that. Second one that we're seeing a lot of is bottle setup. So one of the big keys in this is in the triangle part of your bike, the triangle part of your frame, middle of the frame, trying to get the bottles off of that section because your frame is meant to get rid of wind. And if you put bottles there, it just disrupts the wind. So there's actually some cool ways where you can get more aerodynamic where you put your bottles. So some of the fastest ones we're seeing is the between the arms bottle. So on your aero bars, that starts to fill the hole between the head and the hands, depending on what your tilt is like with the hands. But this is a great one. People are going one or even two bottles there. Great, easy spot to access hydration and fueling and stuff like that without having to leave the aero position, but also testing very aerodynamically fast. So it helps to keep the front profile really clean and helps to reduce drag versus those frame mounted setups. And then the other bottle setup, which is really cool, is the behind the seat one. So we've seen Easy Gains, the company who initially had that disc wheel cover, come out with a cool one that you can do a single or double bottle behind the seat, and they actually sit straight out. So again, it becomes almost like a little straight spoiler on the back that, again, the wind is coming off your head over your back and going smoothly out the back, versus when we used to have those big double straight up bottles at the back. Wind comes over our back and then gets like air disruption. And again, it's just a little bit extra drag there. So over the course of a long ride or triathlon, like these are small gains that could add up to big time savings. So definitely look at your bottle setup, and if you can, try and get them out of the frame bottle area. Next one is going to be your kit. So a well-fitted tri-suit or cycling kit or speed suit really helps reduce the turbulence and drag. So if you have flappy jerseys or loose sleeves that act like parachutes, it's definitely not going to help you. And also the modern suits have really cool like textured fabrics across like the legs and the arms and stuff like that. If you've seen some from like Win Republic or Fusion and stuff like that, they're really cool panels to help keep that airflow and reduce drag. So they have these like golf ball dimples, and then yeah, you'll see like there's no real frills or anything on these suits. Tighter and smoother the fit, the better the air is going to flow. So yeah, a sleek suit versus like a wavy one could be like 5 or 10 watts different, which is a big difference over the course of a bike leg. And then like if it fits properly and reduces chafing or keeps you cool or warm as needed, again allows you to stay in aero longer, be more comfortable for the day. And we know the more we're comfortable, the more we stay relaxed, the more we're going to push good power, stay in position. Next one is an so calf sleeves are another interesting one in terms of like some of the aerodynamics side of things. So yeah, lots of interesting tests around, depending on the width of your calves. The calf sleeves are a little bit more aerodynamic on the airflow versus hitting your leg there, but I've heard it's a little bit different depending on the people, and some only see very, very minor changes or no changes at all, and then some people find it makes them really warm, or they find them annoying or restrictive, in which case then maybe just leave them out. So next topic we're going to go on to, so that was kind of the aerodynamics side of things, is equipment. So it kind of plays a little bit into our first one, but I think those were some of the most important ones there. Good kit, good bike position, bottle setup, which are pretty like low hanging fruit and things you're going to need either way. So good things to invest in first. And then in terms of equipment, I think these are some of the best ones here. So an aero helmet, one of the first things your head sees, that the wind sees, is your head. So having an aero helmet that smooths the airflow around your head, so you're seeing they're going to wider and wider helmets. A lot of people are testing really fast with the Giro Arrowhead, as well as that Rudy Project Wing Dream, I believe it's called. But this is a huge one, and definitely way faster than a road helmet. The only time to think of maybe not using an aero helmet is if it's super hot and you're gonna like overheat and torch yourself that way. But aero helmet is a great one to invest in. Fast rolling tires that have low rolling resistance is a really good one. So there's some great ones, like Vittoria Corsa Speeds, Continental obviously has the GP 5000. That's an amazing one. So if you can get fast rolling tires and change those out, especially before a race. I'm racing Ironman Florida this coming week, and I just changed to some GP 5000 tubeless tires that are brand new. And yeah, it's just going to save a lot of energy over that time, versus if you're riding like gator skins, which are super slow. Maybe you have slightly more increased risk of flats, but I think if you're running a nice tubeless tire, or and have the sealant in there, and you have the means to be able to quickly change, or throw one of those little strips in there to seal it up, that you can run lower tire pressures and ride really fast on that. Another fast way to do it with newer tires is if you're running tubes, is put latex inner tubes. They're faster than sort of those butyl tubes. And you just got to remember they're a little bit higher risk of flats. So maybe just know the course you're riding. If there's one that has a lot of bumps on it or a lot of debris, maybe you go a little bit more on the safe side. But yeah, GP 5000, Vittoria Corsa Speed, Schwalbe Pro 1. There's great ones there. And if you need to know your tire pressure, go to the what's it called? The Silka tire pressure website, and you can put in your weight, your type of tire you're running, and everything. It'll give you the optimal tire pressure. Next one in equipment is a clean drivetrain and chain. So personally for races now, I swap out my training chain that gets stretched out, it gets dirty and holds some more of that grime for a clean wax chain when I go to races. It just again allows every pedal stroke you're putting in to push you forward versus having a bunch of gunk in there that you have to grind through as you're going there. So same thing with a stretch chain. It's just you're not getting all of the return for the power you're putting in. So either get your chain changed out 1 or 2 weeks before the race so you can ride it for an hour or two to sort of work it in a little bit, or just make sure you do a really, really good deep clean of it. So that's going to be getting one of those chain tool things. They're cheap on Amazon, putting some degreaser in it, cleaning your washing it all down, and then re-lubing it is definitely a really good way to make sure. You will notice like it just feels like you're pedaling through butter and that there's no chain on the bike when you do it. So if you haven't done that before and you can rub your finger on your chain and you get black grease, so you notice it's super gunky on there, you could be giving away so much free speed. So I can't recommend that. A clean bike is a fast bike. And then just further to that, like cleaning your bike is so important in terms of making sure like all of the components are running and that it's not all creaky and stuff like that. So just clean your bike all around and it will go a long way. Also in equipment, like I feel like the last things you should be investing in is like deep section wheels or a brand new bike in terms of dollar per cost for speed, like the ones I gave you in terms of the drivetrain, the tires, the position, the aero helmet, bottle setup, the kit. Are you can invest in all of those for less than one set of aero wheels that might only save you like a couple minutes. So just think about that before you go buying like $2,000, $1,000 wheels. You could spend money in better spots than that. I debated getting a disc wheel for Florida, but I looked and it's like 2 to 3 watts different than my deep section 80 mil tire. I'd have to spend $1,500 on that. Instead, I got new tires. I got that new wax chain. I added a new bottle. I made sure that all of my equipment was brand new, my like kit and stuff like that. So I'm going to be just as fast and spend some more time investing in like training stuff and staying more aerodynamic. So just pieces to think about. Next one to think about in terms of going as fast as possible is pacing. So even pacing beats surging because it really conserves glycogen, limits your muscle breakdown, and helps you hold steadier power for longer. So we often see in an Ironman bike leg, you come out excited and you're fresh. Like you might see a small fall off, but you don't want to be soft pedaling in that last 1 to 2 hours of your Ironman bike leg. So if you can pace it evenly and have good data from your training that you know what power you can push coming off of a swim where you just expended a bit of energy. So it's going to mean riding at a slightly lower percentage versus when you are fresh, and just knowing how to distribute the power. So if you're on a hilly course, using something like Best Bike Split or getting your coach to run it through so you can optimally pace that and know how to distribute the power, because you're not on a hilly course just going to ride the same power the entire way. You're going to have variations in power, but knowing like how high you can go, which is going to be sustainable. But if you're somebody who's like riding a flatter rolling course and you're surging, say you're riding, your goal is to ride 200 watts for that, and you're suddenly surging to 300, 400 watts every time, you're just burning extra matches that are going to get you in the late part of the bike or destroy your marathon. So I'll give you the example. If you go on your bike and ride for 200 watts, just pin it there for the entire hour, or you go do a VO2 max workout where maybe it averages out to 200 watts at the end, but you're doing like 20 times 1 minute at 350 watts in there with easy spinning. I can tell you, get off of that bike and which one is your legs going to feel worse. Definitely the one where you did a bunch of VO2 stuff. So smooth out the power. You're going to probably go faster for that. And then you're also going to be able to run, which is super important. So Next one is fueling and hydration. So we can have the biggest engine possible, but if we don't give our engine the fuel and things it needs to actually perform at that best level, then we're just going to fade off and not be able to go to the highest potential. Especially when we're doing like Ironman 70.3 stuff that is running in that like upper zone 2, zone 3 type of stuff. It really is more of a carbohydrate equation. Like if you can get your carbs up in that 90 gram per hour, especially for some of the longer stuff, like you are going to notice such a huge difference in being able to hold that high end power and be able to run off of it. So remember, when we're doing more than 60 grams per hour of fuel, you're going to want like a glucose to fructose mix. Usually the optimal is like a 1 to 0.8. A lot of the drink mixes and gels have that built in. I'm a big fan of Precision or SIS for my drink mix and gels. And they're thinking about that ratio and have tested it. And there's a reason lots of the pro athletes are using it. If you notice, there's not many pro athletes using goo gels because those things are repulsive. And if you are still using those, please go try some other gels. SIS, Precision, Morton. I'm not as big of a fan of Morton. I find it kind of weird on the taste and texture. So Precision and SIS are my favorite. But keep your fueling plan consistent and simple. For example, in an Ironman bike leg, I have an alarm on my bike computer every 20 minutes. This reminds me to sip on drink mix on the 20 and the 60-minute. And then on the 40, I'm usually taking a 40-gram gel there. I'm doing about 100 grams of carbs per hour on the bike in an Ironman bike leg where I'm biking 4.5 to 5 hours. So yeah, your goal is to make sure you can simply finish all of this stuff and not have to think about it and be rolling into transition with half your nutrition sitting on your bike. The second piece to that puzzle is the sodium and hydration. Remember, this is very individual. Hydration's an easy one to test. There's lots of, just search up like how to test your sweat losses, and you can do very simple at-home parts with a scale by tracking what you took in terms of fluids during, how much weight you lose, and you can start to get an idea in different conditions how much your sweat loss is going to be and how much you need to be replacing per hour. And then sodium takes a little bit more testing with a specific lab typically. Usually there's like Precision has certain test sites around that people run. So go on the Precision Fuel and Hydration website. You can plug in your race distance, everything like that, and it'll give you some good ideas of what you should be taking in from carbs, sodium, and hydration. But yeah, those ones are huge. Just remember in racing too, like carbohydrates and sodium are easy ones to catch up on. If you get behind, you can smash a bunch of those, and within 5 to 10 minutes, you're feeling totally fine again. Hydration is one that takes a long time to replenish. So if you dig a hole on that, you're probably like in the hole and going to be digging out of that and maybe won't come back in that race. So that's where it's super important. You need to limit those losses to about 1 to 2% of body weight losses, or you're going to get yourself in big trouble. So get that testing done. It was really illuminating for me. For example, I thought I was getting a lot of cramping in my races, and I thought it was because I was losing a lot of sodium, and I didn't think my sweat rate was that high. So I was doing like 750 to 1,000 milligrams of sodium per hour and just targeting like 750 mils of fluid. I found I lose more like 1 liter to 1,200 mils of fluids per hour, but I'm only losing like 400 to 500 milligrams of sodium per hour. So now what I've done is I can get my sodium in easily. I target usually that 400 or 500 milligrams per hour. But in terms of the hydration, that was my Achilles heel that was causing a lot of my cramping. It was usually combined with sodium and muscle breakdown. But when I nailed that hydration side and started to get more like a liter an hour, upping it in hot conditions, it helped solve a lot of my issues and allowed me to hold strong late in that race. So remember, always test this stuff and practice it in training at race pace on similar race conditions in terms of a course and in the heat that you're going to do. And that will go a long way. All right, 2 final pieces to talk about in terms of more than the FTP puzzle. Next one is going to be durability. So People can push as much as they want for an hour, but what they can do in their final 2, 3, 4, 5 hours in is more important than their fresh FTP. And the more you can limit the loss, because your threshold is going to almost go down as you're riding on a leg like this, that you need to realize that it does drop, and you need to practice through your training how to become more durable so you can hold that high power all the way through. So it comes down to pacing and not over pacing early, or it's just going to continue to drop. But I do a lot of like durability type workouts with my athletes. So it might be something like, okay, we're going to do a 5 hour ride where I get you to do maybe a 30, 40 minute tempo at Ironman pace early in the ride. Then we're going to ride zone 2 type of stuff for another 2 hours. And then when we're 3 hours, 4 hours into the ride, now we're going to hit another block at Ironman or 70.3 intensity to teach your body to be able to ride strong power once fatigue is already set in. And it sucks on the first couple, but then suddenly people start to build that durability and they can hold strong power, and their legs and system know how to handle it late in the ride. And now they can ride good power and speed late in the bike leg, and they can hop off and run a fast marathon even with tired legs. So remember, this durability comes from consistent long runs and your overall endurance training. So just steady fuel and practice, long rides around race power, having some of those key interval days during the week to sort of build that top end and that LT2 and LT1. And then, yeah, overall weekly volume is a huge contributor to how durable an athlete is. Our final piece that a lot of people miss out on, and maybe not as big of a factor if you're riding a very flat, straight ahead course, like I'm using an example like Ironman Texas or California, where you're just like essentially riding the trainer. But any course that has some rolling hills or some corners, bike handling and momentum is another really important one. So if you can be confident cornering, climbing, and descending, it saves both time and energy if you can do this relaxed. So especially in long course racing, if you have a lot of corners and stuff like that, handling skills, not having to leave the aero position for them, or just being able to carry good speed out there, saves you having to surge to get back up to speed. So if you can, carry good speed through these technical sections, it makes a big difference versus having to use your brakes and reaccelerate. And then same thing, smooth descending. If you're not riding the brakes, again, it's just another minute or two that you're going to save getting down the hill. So if you can confidently practice this stuff, I know it's hard for some North American athletes if you don't have good descending and you're going to a European spot. Getting as much practice as you can to get used to the speeds is maybe what you're going to do over here, and then try and get there early for your race and recon so you know what the corners are and where you actually need to brake before getting yourself in trouble. And then same thing on like rolling courses, knowing how to distribute the power, and should I hit, depending on the size of hill and what's after it, how hard do I hit this hill? Do I know that I'm going to get momentum and downhill after, or is it into a flat section where maybe I need to back off a little bit so that I can get back to power over it? That's where Best Bike Split is amazing for one like this, is it can tell you, hey, yeah, this is a 10% grade on this. Like, you need to go up to threshold, even though it isn't an Ironman, because that's going to distribute the power, and you get a nice recovery for 5 minutes after it on a downhill. So using something like Best Bike Split allows you to hold momentum through the turns and the rollers, and give you sort of free speed without having to put in any extra effort. So yeah, just especially if you're spending all your time indoors, like trainer is amazing for building fitness, but it doesn't prepare you for real world dynamics. So again, another factor that you might be up against is winds. So knowing how to distribute, if you're in a headwind, like pushing a little bit harder during that time, knowing the course and knowing maybe when you get a tailwind that you're going to be able to spin a little bit quicker, ride a little lower power, and recover. Same thing if you are riding in crosswinds, or depending on if the wind's coming slightly off the side and then as a tailwind or a headwind, knowing how to distribute that. So good riders know that if you're riding with, for example, a crosswind, that you can actually use it to your advantage, and instead of fighting the wind and really leaning into it and being super tense and fighting against it, if you sort of slowly drift into the wind. And then every now and then, as you get a gust, you sort of just let it push you over and carry some momentum for you, that it's actually faster than just trying to fight it the whole time. So when I have a long stretch that has like a crosswind off the right side, for example, I'm going to be slowly moving over towards the side of the road. And then if I get a bit of a gust there, I'm going to just go with the flow and let it push me maybe back to the middle of the lane. And then I'll slowly come back. And instead of fighting it, I'm kind of becoming one with the wind and letting myself be a bit of a sailboat and get pushes from it. So just another one. If you get used to it, you can ride comfortably through that stuff. All right, those were the 6 tips. So just a summary to finish up. We had our aerodynamics, so a lot around bike fit and bottle setup, things like that. Your kit. We talked a bunch about equipment, so tires, your helmet, your drivetrain, your bike and aero wheels. We talked about pacing, fueling and hydration, durability, and bike handling and momentum. So make sure you go through this, check if you are ticking all the boxes on this stuff, and all of this stuff matters these days because everybody is at the top is optimizing for this stuff, and you're just giving away time if you're not. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If I missed anything, chuck me some comments there, but we will see you next week for another episode. Wish me luck. I'm ripping at Ironman Florida this coming Saturday, so chuck me on your Ironman tracker, and hopefully I can make you proud out there. Have a good one. We'll see you next week.